how that radiation goes in there. And I say there's two big downsides for proton radiation. First downside is there's not very many proton centers. There's only 2 in California, right? 5 west of the Rockies. And so patients have to travel for it. And most of our patients have to come to San Francisco to stay for a period of time. And that can be difficult for some people to move and stay. The other big downside is after we get that simulation, to start the radiation, with standard X-ray radiation, it takes me about 2 or 3 days to get started. With protons, because of the precision we need, after we do that initial scan, it takes 2 to 3 weeks before we can start that radiation because of the need for increased accuracy and the calculations needed to get that done. So there are some patients I say you can't wait 2 weeks, 3 weeks, you need to get started right away. Some cases we can start with X-rays and then transition over to protons if necessary, but that is definitely a downside to proton therapy. The last part of the building is this base of the U, right, the letter U. That's at the top. The base of the U is where the protons are and how the heart of our center. The accelerator, the machine that speeds the protons up, are on the very far back corner over there. Okay. The machine itself is on right now, so we don't want to go back there. It's radioactive. So that's why we have a model of this here. If you think of like a Barbie doll, that's kind of reference for size of what it looks like. It uses hydrogen gas to get protons into the magnets that spin this up to about 2/3 the speed of light. So basically the protons are fast enough, they can go around the Earth, the whole Earth 4 times in a second. That's how fast we need to get the protons to get going. And then we got to stop it in a very small amount of area. So this pipe that comes out goes along the whole back of our building to the 4 rooms for patients when we need to get treatment. The pipe has these little copper things, or magnets, that focus the protons. Because the protons are positively charged, they're wanting to spread away from each other. And what the magnets do is they force it back down to a very thin area, so you're not losing protons all over the place, and we can get it very focused. And so they act like lenses to get the protons to the area we need it to go. In the rooms itself, the protons are then targeted to the patient by the machine that rotates around that patient. There's actually 2 types of rooms we have here. I think they said we still have about 10 minutes till we go in. So one of the rooms is what we call our fixed beam, where the protons just come straight out of the wall like this. And that's where most of the original physics equipment is, when it's coming out, is straight out of the wall. And so to get those different angles like I showed on the presentation, in essence what we do is you strap a patient to a rotisserie, and we rotate the patient around.
Like a rotisserie.
Like a rotisserie. It works, but it's not very comfortable. And so that's all we had for many decades, because we were doing the scientific experiment rooms. Our Loma Linda, kind of our first bit of innovation, saying instead of moving the patient, can we mount this on the machine to rotate it around to make it more like a standard radiation machine where the machine rotates around. Okay. That machine, though, has to be very big because the magnets have to control those protons that are moving so fast they can go around the Earth 4 times in a second. So you don't have very much time to control it. And so those magnets weigh about 280 tons, so it's as much as a 747 airliner. And so it goes up a story and down a story. It's 3 stories worth of heavy magnets that are rotating around the patient. So we're going to go in one of those rooms to take a look at that. Now we do have, of our 4 rooms, one of those rooms is the one that just comes straight out of the wall. And we can use that for select cases like some prostate cancers, because for prostate you're just coming through the hips anyways. And so it's one less thing to move, and it's actually faster if we can use that. So some patients will say, well, how come I'm in this room? It's because they qualify for being able to have that room that just comes straight out of the side. Some brain tumors, we can do that as well. That room we only have one of, so it's pretty busy, so we're not going to go take a look at that one. We're just going to go look at the one that's the big spinning one. It's called the gantry room. We have 3 of those. Okay. They're treating patients in there right now, so we'll wait in a break between patients, and then we'll go in and take a look at that. All right. Otherwise, exactly how the machine works, I don't know. Sometimes we get a lot of physics and engineers here. We have a whole engineering team, and so if there's physicists or engineers, we can ask our engineers to come talk about that. Because some people are like, well, what's this part? I don't know. I'm not the engineer. I know the basics of it, but I don't work on this. If we have engineers here, there's 9 on staff. They're basically here 24/7. We're always not treating patients. We treat from 7 in the morning till 10 at night sometimes later. And then they work on the machines until 6 a.m. Doing QA and maintenance and so forth every night.
How much downtime is there on the machine?
So that's a great question. It depends on, I found that it depends a little bit on the weather. Our biggest issue typically is if there's a big storm, our power supplies get jolted. Anytime we have a little brownout, that resets all the computers and stuff, and we can get a lot of half-an-hour downtimes. Typically, we aim for 96% up. We've had some major repairs this year, though, because we came on our 10-year. We just celebrated our 10-year anniversary in February. So the last 4 months, we've had a lot of additional downtimes repairing components that have hit 10-year marks. But since they've done those repairs this month, we're I think at like 97% so uptime so far.
Where is the machine?
The machine's made. So this our particular machine. There's a couple main manufacturers. The 3 main manufacturers is a company in Belgium, two companies in Japan, Hitachi, Sumitomo, actually 3, and Mitsubishi. Ours is an American company, was an American company from Bay Area, Palo Alto, but their factory for our particular machine is made in France and Germany. And so actually ours was shipped here to the port of LA. I remember we had to bring it down from LA all down to 5, and the machine is so heavy. We had to close down the 5 freeway between 2 a.m. and 5 a.m. It only can move about 30 miles an hour. So over three nights, they would close down the freeway, and then we drove it sequentially down, so we were following it on the cameras as they brought it down.
Speed racer.
Yeah, speed racer. Yeah, 30 miles an hour, and close down the whole freeway to bring ours down.
So what kind of vehicle?
It was one of those big, they take up 2 lanes, with big tracks on them. I don't know what they're called. They have like the remote control thing. Yeah. Yeah, that was in 2011, I think.
What's the maintenance schedule on these things?
Well, every day there's something. Every night they're working on something. Weekends they do bigger ones. Once a year there's a 4-day, like our July 4th holiday. We don't treat on Thursday and Friday, so they have that 4 days. They have a bunch of different things. It's always repairing cablings or whatever.
Right.
What version would you say you have today, like from when they started to where we are?
Yeah, so I think about it in terms of generations. This is the 3rd generation. So Loma Linda, those are the 1st generation in the 90s and early 2000s. To the like about 2005 to about 2012, was the 2nd generation where they started making them bigger and to be able to do more. This is the newest generation that started with our center that does something called pencil beam scanning, which is a very sophisticated electronically controlled version of the beam. And so like since Loma Linda, we had literally dials that we'd have to fine tune every day, or every machine for every treatment. You have to tune it to get to that right beam. The new ones now, like ours, is all computer controlled, and so it speeds it up and allows us to do what's called IMPT, intensity modulated proton therapy, where we're able to give higher doses within a volume of disease and to be able to very accurately increase the amount of radiation computer control.
And when did you get this one here?
So it was installed in 2012 or 2013, the end of 2012, 2013, and we started treatment in 2014, February of 2014.
And I'm sure there's a new one that they're working on right now.
So this is the newest ones actually just further computerize it even more. And actually not even that. The newest ones shrink it to make it smaller and smaller. So that's probably the biggest thing is when you think about the cell phone from the 90s, right? You got those great things, right? And then think about what we have now. It's really miniaturization. So what's made proton therapy be able to make more centers in the last 10 years, double from the 20 to 40, is because the machines are now much smaller than this, and so they're, as a result, cheaper, and so they're able to get deployed and built much quicker because they're now smaller and smaller. And that's the newest thing is every few years they get a little bit smaller, the magnets get smaller and more high-powered.
But it's one company that's designing it, but you have different manufacturing.
There's actually 4 different companies that
They
design.
have their own unique design?
They all have their own unique designs. Well, for the most part, some of the companies are very similar. Like one of the Japanese companies and the Belgian company are use the same design, but all the other ones are a little bit designed. I mean, the base of it, I say, the heart of a proton, this accelerator, the technology is not really all that different. It's the same technologies in the 1930s when it was designed by Dr. Lawrence. Really, everything else is the computer controls. And you think about like a car, right?
Yeah.
The car that Henry Ford makes, the motor is basically the same as the cars that are made now. The differences are now you don't have manuals for the most part. It's automatic transmissions. You have seat warmers now. Things are more comfortable, so we're not rotating patients on a rotisserie. But the concept of it and the magnets of it, it's basically the same technology. The core technology is the same. It's all iterations of how do we develop it better, quicker, cheaper, and smaller is really what's done.
What's the safety protocol on these?
There's a whole lot of them, and that's part of the reasons we have. Anytime there's a brownout, everything shuts down. Is because there's multiple checks in the process. If any one check says the energy is a little bit off, there's detectors to see if it's off by less than about a 20th of an inch, they'll shut down. And so there's detectors all along the routes and in the room. And so if any particular patient comes in, there's every patient will have some of the patients will see badges. They have to key scan it in, and that has to register. If that doesn't get registered and the particular computer plan doesn't pull up, then they'll shut down and not allow treatment to go in. And then we have also seismic ones here, just being in California. That's part of the reason ours is heavier. We have all sorts of springs to, if the building shakes, dampeners and things that will cut off.
Seismic.
The seismic. And you can see like the seams in the wall. You see that brown seam right there? So our building is actually a little bit separated, so we can, on wheels, so we can move.
What is the success rate of the people who completed with?
So it depends on the type of cancer, the success rate. It is very much dependent on the cancer. And it's basically generally equivalent to that of standard radiation. So the most common cancers we treat here, prostate cancer and breast cancer, you're expecting like low intermediate risk prostate cancer, it's going to be 90 to 95% control. Breast cancer, 90% plus. And again, it depends on the type of cancer that we treat. Yes, sir.
In comparing the advantages of the proton therapy with the radiation therapy, you state that the proton therapy is far more accurate, but yet in looking at the radiation therapy, they can insert like a piece of gold onto the cancer itself and then direct the beam right to that piece of gold rather than searching around in the cancer. How would you answer the question of the accuracy of the proton over the
Great question.
radiation?
Yeah, so it's not more accurate, it's more precise, and that has to do with where you deliver the radiation. The targets, if they're drawn the same, the radiation can be delivered to the same area. The insertion of the gold markers is typically done in prostate cancer. We do it for some lung cancers as well. We actually do that here as well, but we use carbon fiber instead of gold. It has to do with the gold can deflect some of the protons, whereas X-rays, it doesn't deflect it, so it just goes straight through. And what we're trying to do is not go straight through, so we use carbon fiber to shape it. So the carbon fiber markers that are inserted in the prostate are done at the same time as that space SOR procedure if patients are candidates for the space SOR procedure. With standard X-rays, you're also trying to treat the entirety of the prostate because there are no boundaries in the prostate and those legs can go anywhere. So you give radiation to the whole prostate and then you do extra doses of radiation right around the markers of where the cancer are. And so we do the same thing. The goal though with protons is not so much the difference in the target, which is going to receive the same radiation, it's the non-target tissue, bladder, rectum, and the muscles that we're trying to avoid the radiation for.
So you're trying to prevent collateral damage.
Correct. It's the target should still get the same amount of radiation. The main goal of protons is to avoid the collateral damage, the non-target tissue that we're trying to get.
For me too, if I could respond to your question, I had 3 fiducials, they're called, placed where my main cancer was. And so it was like, if you think of the cancers here, there's a fiducial here, here, and maybe here. So that focuses the beam to hit that particular piece of where the cancer is. And then also I have the spacer gel inserted.
They did that gel insert as well
Yeah.
for the rectum? And those fiducials are inserted
They're
prior
inserted.
through surgery?
No, well, sort of. I mean, the whole thing was done at one time. I think it took like an hour and a half.
Yeah, it's the same share of the spacer. The fiducials are placed at the same time.
Okay.
Right. We typically do that Wednesdays. I just saw Dr. Davis. Some of you guys might have him. He just walked
Yeah.
over. We do it right in that room back there. The spacer, patients do tell me it can be uncomfortable. Some patients tell me they don't feel anything. Some patients tell me it feels like they're sitting on a golf ball a little bit because there's something right there. It does go away, so that's one reason we like it. It's not like the breast implants that I use for some of the other organ displacements. The collagen actually breaks down. I think that's why the plastic surgeons like it. The celebrities have to go in every 3 months, to get it repeated. The collagen breaks down. Actually, the first iteration did break down after 3 months. We had some patients that were in the middle of treatment that we're starting to see it break down. We're like, oh, we need a little bit longer. So they reformulated it so they last about 6 months now for us.
I had spacer done, and basically it was not a painful process. When it was put in, it was no general anesthesia. It was just lidocaine, and it felt like you kind of had to have a bowel movement, but you didn't for about the first 18 hours, and then there was no sensation whatsoever the rest of the time.
Do they get taken out?
The spacer? No, it dissolves. The collagen
dissolves.
just breaks down. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. So it lasts about 6 months and then breaks down and goes away.
What about the carbon fiber?
Those stay.
Those stay?
Yeah, just like the patients who have gold, those stay in there as well. They're like the size of a grain of rice, the carbon fiber fiducials, and they just sit there.
And it's not going to affect your ability to travel.
There you go.
So
Like the gold seeds one.
Yeah. We'll see sometimes if there's really sensitive metal detectors might set off the metal detector. Carbon fiber doesn't do that. So a little benefit.
But does it eliminate post-surgery? If you have to have surgery for whatever reason?
No, not necessarily. So for patients, that's a good question. So the question is, if a patient needs surgery afterwards, does it prevent you
I'm just talking prostate now.
Yeah, prostate, no,
Yeah.
it doesn't. It does make it technically more difficult though. So many surgeons will say, if you've had radiation, not just protons, any radiation, X-ray or protons, you can't do surgery. And it's not you can't, it's just there's a lot of scar tissue there.
Yes.
And so it's much harder. With protons, it's a little bit easier because there's not scar tissue all the way around, just on the sides. So it's actually a little bit easier to do after protons, but it's still not easy as a normal one. And surgeons generally don't like to do it. Part of it is because it's more technically difficult, and also because it takes a lot more time and they don't get paid anymore. So instead of
Why
like
would
2
you
hours
want to
surgery.
do surgery?
In some patients, if a cancer does come back, surgery would be the next step. So even though cure rates are 90 to 95%, there is a 5 to 10% that will come back. And if it comes back at the prostate, you would look at surgery as the next option to treat it.
If it does come back, is there an option to retreat it with proton?
Yes, there are some cases where we can retreat it with radiation after protons or after X-ray radiation or after surgery. That's the case too, because surgery also has about 5 or 10% chance of coming back. Patients who got surgery, you could do radiation afterwards with protons. Great questions. Good.
With breast cancer, if you've had lumpectomies or multiple ones, is that interfering or a problem?
Not necessarily. Generally with breast cancer, you want to have a lumpectomy first before radiotherapy. That's part of the treatment regimen. And even after mastectomy radiation. Lumpectomy, it's easier to do because there's less of an area to treat.
But the scar tissue's there too.
Yeah. They said they're ready for us in the room there, so we'll go back. I'll show you some of the machines, and we'll come back out. Happy.
用趴，这是我治疗时候用的趴的那个固定的架子。
He's seeing his
So,
weekly patient visits. You probably remember those weekly visits. He's doing that today.
Does he have an office here or a chiropractor?
Here.
Okay.
Come on in. Feel free to come on the way. No problem. Come on in. Round and over as necessary. And the protons come out of the head of the machine here. And this rotates around 360 degrees. And as it rotates, that goes to the angle that we need it to go. So this is the machinery that goes up another story and down another story. Actually, Matt, do you want to pull this up to 0 and then back down to 30? Does that mess you up? So you can see what it looks like when a patient is in the team. Matt was one of our lead therapists here. So you can see the machine looking like when it rotates around the patient to get to the specific angles that we need to go. So, let's see, what else do people like to ask? In this room, you can see some of these black bags over here, the blue ones. Those are the bean bags that patients lay in, and then you can see sometimes they shake their legs, right? And then all the air is sucked out of there.
It's a face down because the phone is button. Oh, unbelievable.
Thank you.
Is the one you transport from I-5?
No, this one came in pieces. The one we transported is one big piece. That's the back. That's on, but we can't see. So you can see this whole thing was rotating just a moment ago. Those big wheels are what this is hinged on. You have to be careful.